Darkness isn't always loud. Sometimes it doesn't arrive with thunder or screaming or shattered glass. Sometimes it slips quietly through the cracks of a home. It sits at your dinner table. It smiles during family photos. It says goodnight, kisses your forehead and whispers, "I love you." And you believe it. Because why wouldn't you? This is a story about a woman named Amanda. A mother who had no reason to fear the man she woke up next to every morning. A woman who thought her life was ordinary, stable, predictable. A woman who thought the worst thing she'd ever have to deal with was her daughter forgetting to take the trash out, or a leaky dishwasher, or a missed dentist appointment. She was wrong. This is also a story about a 14-year-old girl named Mia. Brave in a way no child should ever have to be. A girl who noticed what the adults didn't. A girl whose instincts were sharper than the man who underestimated her. A girl who, with one quiet decision, saved her mother's life. And unbelievably, this is also the story of a Ring camera. A little white device that sits on door frames across America, usually catching porch pirates, raccoons, and Amazon deliveries. But this time it recorded something far more chilling. It caught a husband, a father, walking into a kitchen before sunrise, reaching for a bottle of vodka, and pouring it into something he knew his wife drank every morning. This is the moment the mask slipped. The moment the truth spilled out, quiet as poison. And today you will hear the full story. Not the short version. Not the headlines. Not the local news update version that gives you 30 seconds of horror and moves on. No. You're going to hear the long version. The terrifying version. The version where you're inside the home, watching the manipulation unfold slowly, quietly, in ways designed to make Amanda doubt her sanity, and make everyone else doubt her too. Because sometimes evil doesn't want to scare you. Sometimes it wants to erase you. And if Mia hadn't acted when she did, that's exactly what would have happened. So sit down. Silence your phone. Listen closely. Because this story begins the way all tragedies pretend to hide. With a happy home, a smiling husband, and the smallest whisper of doubt. My name is Amanda Lewis. I'm 36 years old. And before everything happened, I thought my life was normal. Not perfect. Not glamorous. But comfortable. Predictable in a way that made me feel safe. I lived in a calm cul-de-sac in suburban Colorado. The kind where neighbors wave from their driveways and kids leave scooters on the sidewalk without worrying someone will steal them. My husband, Derek, and I had been together for almost 16 years. He wasn't charming in a movie star way or bold in a dramatic way. He was quiet, stable, a numbers guy who ran a small tax consulting business out of a rented office space a few miles away. We weren't passionate like newlyweds, but we were steady. We had routines, inside jokes, shared grocery lists, the kind of marriage that, from the outside, seemed strong simply because it wasn't falling apart. And then there was Mia, my daughter, my heart. 14 years old, all legs and messy hair and oversized hoodies. Smart, observant, soft-spoken unless she was talking about something she cared about. Science, mystery novels, or the stray cats she tried to sneak into the garage. I thought we were a normal family. And maybe that's why when the first strange thing happened I brushed it off. I didn't realize how dangerous small comments can be. How damaging a single seed of doubt can become. How manipulation doesn't show up with a roar. It shows up with a whisper. The first time Derek joked about me liking wine a little too much. We were at a neighbor's barbecue. Someone teased me for putting extra ice cubes in my cup. I liked my drinks freezing cold, and Derek laughed. She's got a new relationship with wine. They're basically engaged. He said it lightly. People chuckled. I rolled my eyes. Because I didn't drink. Not really. A glass of white wine every few months at a social event was hardly a relationship. But Derek kept smiling, shaking his head like I was being shy about it. I nudged him, whispered, "What are you talking about?" He just winked and said, "Relax, it's a joke." But the second time it didn't feel like a joke. We were in the kitchen after dinner, loading dishes. I dropped a glass. It slipped from my hand and shattered on the tile. Instead of asking if I was okay, instead of shrugging it off, Derek sighed. Amanda, if you're going to drink, at least be careful. Mia could have been in here. I stared at him. Drink? Derek, it's a Tuesday night. I haven't had anything. He didn't even look at me. Come on, babe, you don't have to hide it. I'm not mad. Hide what? I laughed nervously, trying to brush it away. Seriously, what are you talking about? You know I don't drink. He wiped his hands on a towel, walked past me and said quietly, You always say you don't. That's part of the problem. Something inside me tightened, a kind of faint alarm. But I ignored it, because the alternative, that he was serious, felt impossible. Derek was always reasonable, logical, not dramatic, so I brushed it off. But he didn't let it go. It started happening in small moments, a joke here, a comment there. Then it went from teasing, to concern, to accusation. Like the night he stood in our bedroom doorway and said, I think you need help, Amanda. Those 6 words changed everything. My book slid off my lap. I looked up. For what? I asked, genuinely confused. Derek exhaled like he was exhausted, rubbing the back of his neck. For drinking, he said. It's getting worse. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. You're not serious. But he was. His face didn't move. His eyes didn't soften. He looked at me the way a parent looks at a stubborn teenager, pitying, disappointed. Amanda, denial is normal. Denial. The word cut through the room like cold steel. I wasn't denying anything. There was nothing to deny. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. It felt like I was suddenly speaking a language he didn't understand. And that was the first night I realized something was wrong. Not with me, but with him. Because Derek wasn't joking anymore. He was building something. A narrative. A reputation. A label for me that I couldn't shake off with logic or laughter. I didn't know it yet, but he was setting the stage. And I was the character he wanted to destroy. The human body is a funny thing. It usually warns you when something is wrong. A cold comes with a scratchy throat. Stress comes with headaches. If you're dehydrated, your lips get dry. But nothing prepares you for feeling drunk when you haven't had a single sip of alcohol. First, it was small things. I wake up and feel foggy, like my thoughts were covered in static, like someone had replaced my brain with a TV stuck between channels. I chalked it up to stress. Motherhood, work, marriage, life piles up, right? Everyone gets overwhelmed. But then the symptoms became harder to explain. I'd stand up from bed and feel my balance tilt. Not like dizziness, more like gravity shifted when I wasn't looking. My hands trembled when I buttered toast. I mixed up grocery items. I put cereal in the fridge and milk in the pantry. I'd forget what I was saying mid-sentence. And every time something like this happened, Derek was right there. He would sigh softly, shake his head, place a hand on my shoulder like he was comforting a patient. Amanda, this isn't normal. You didn't seem this off last year. I'm worried about you. He said it gently, like he cared, like he was the only one paying attention. It was subtle, but manipulation always is. One morning I sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at my reflection. My face looked pale. My eyes were glassy like I'd been crying. But I hadn't. I splashed cold water on my cheeks. I blinked at my reflection. This doesn't make sense. Another night I fell asleep at 8:30, something I never did, and slept straight into morning. When I woke up, my tongue felt thick. My head pounded. My breath smelled wrong, like something sharp, acidic, alcoholic. Derek leaned against the doorway, arms folded. Rough night, huh? He said. Rough night? Derek, I went to bed early and slept for 10 hours. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? That question, are you sure, became a dagger. But I shrugged it off. People get sick. People get stressed. I didn't want to create problems where there weren't any. But denial is easy when you don't want to face the truth. Then things escalated. It was a Friday morning in March, spring barely budding through the Colorado chill. I was walking downstairs to start breakfast. My foot hit the 3rd step, and instead of meeting solid wood, it met air. My ankle twisted. My knee buckled. I grabbed the railing but my fingers slipped, and suddenly I was tumbling. Not falling, tumbling. Every step thudded against my back, my hip, my shoulder. By the time I reached the bottom, I was dizzy, breathless, and shaking. I hadn't tripped. I hadn't stumbled. My body simply failed. Derek rushed over, too quickly, like he'd been waiting for something. But instead of checking my injuries, instead of panic, instead of concern, he said, "Amanda, this is exactly what I mean. You're drunk again, aren't you?" My vision blurred. My heart pounded. I pushed myself up, wincing. "I didn't drink anything. I fell because you're impaired," he interrupted. "No," I snapped. "Because I'm tired. Because I'm stressed. Because you have a problem," he finished softly. He said it as if he were telling me the weather. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to run. But instead I said nothing. Because I couldn't trust my own body. Because the symptoms kept getting worse. Because I didn't know what to believe anymore. A week later I went to my doctor. She examined me, puzzled. Blood tests. Liver function tests. Dehydration tests. Neurological checks. Everything came back normal. Except one thing. "You're dehydrated," she said gently. "Are you drinking enough water?" I almost laughed. Water was the one thing I drank religiously. Every morning, same routine. Wake up. Grab my blue stainless steel bottle from the fridge. Drink half before breakfast. I lived on water. The doctor's comment bothered me. It looped through my mind like a broken record. Are you drinking enough water? I left the appointment uneasy, because the only thing that didn't make sense was the water. Then came the morning that changed everything. Another foggy sunrise. Another pounding headache. Another stumble that made no sense. I went to the fridge, opened the door, and grabbed my water bottle. The same blue one Derek had bought for me at Target years ago. I unscrewed the cap, took a sip, and instantly gagged. The liquid burned my throat. It tasted sharp, chemical, wrong. My brain reacted before I could stop it. Vodka. I froze. My hands trembled. My heart raced like I just sprinted a marathon. No. No way. Impossible. I lifted the bottle to my nose and inhaled. Vodka. Strong. Undeniable. My stomach clenched. I had filled that bottle last night. I remembered doing it. I remembered turning off the kitchen lights afterward. I stormed into the living room, holding the bottle. "Derek," I said, my voice shaking. "Why is there alcohol in my water bottle?" He blinked, too slowly, too controlled. "I don't know," he said calmly. "Maybe you put it there." "Why would I? People with drinking problems forget things," he said, shrugging. "It happens." I stared at him, stunned. I did not put vodka in my water. His expression didn't change. Not a flicker. "Amanda, this is exactly why I'm worried about you." The room felt cold. The world felt tilted. Everything in me screamed, something is wrong. Something is terribly, dangerously wrong. But I didn't yet understand how wrong. I didn't know how far it would go. I didn't know Mia was already suspicious. I didn't know she had noticed things I hadn't. And I definitely didn't know that a small white camera, hidden in plain sight, would soon expose the truth I couldn't see. Because while Derek was quietly poisoning me, Mia was quietly watching him. There is a special kind of terror that comes not from violence, not from fear of the unknown, but from watching someone slowly dismantle your reality while smiling kindly the whole time. That's what Derek did. One rumor at a time. One concerned comment at a time. One quiet conversation designed to erode my credibility grain by grain. People think abuse happens in explosions. Yelling. Throwing things. Bruises. Police calls. But that's not the most effective kind. The worst kind is quiet. Patient. Strategic. The kind that infiltrates your social circle long before you realize what's happening. And Derek was a master of quiet destruction. The first hint came from our neighbor, Jen. She's the cheerful type. Always outside gardening, always waving, always offering muffins. One afternoon she asked how I was feeling. Fine, I said. Why? She hesitated. Derek mentioned you've been under the weather. That you're, dealing with stress. She said the last word carefully, like I was a wounded animal she didn't want to frighten. I thought nothing of it. People vent to neighbors. Maybe Derek was just talking. No big deal. But then a week later my mother called me out of the blue. Her voice trembled the second I answered. Honey, she said, if you ever need help with anything you can tell me. Help with what? I asked confused. With drinking. My heart plummeted. Mom, I don't drink. Silence. Then, well, Derek said. I hung up the phone before she finished. I sat on the couch breathing hard. Why was he telling my mother that? Why was he telling anyone that? But I brushed it off. People exaggerate. People misinterpret. Maybe he was worried about my dizziness, maybe he was looking for support. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. That was my first mistake. 2 weeks later I learned the truth. I was called into a small conference room at work. My supervisor, Linda, closed the door gently. She sat across from me, hands folded, voice cautious. Amanda, you've seemed tired lately. And a little unfocused. Is everything okay at home? My cheeks burned. Yes, everything is fine. Why? She sighed. I received a phone call from your husband. He said you've been struggling. My stomach clenched. Struggling how? I whispered. Her eyes flicked to the table. With alcohol. I felt like the floor dropped out from underneath me. My coworkers? He called my job? Linda, that's not true, I said, my voice shaking. I don't drink. I've never had a drinking problem. She gave me a sympathetic smile. Amanda, denial is the first step to admitting you need help. My hands went cold. My mind spun. What is he doing? Why would he say this? I walked out of that meeting feeling like the walls of my life were closing in. Anxiety formed a knot in my throat that didn't go away for days. What else had he said? Who else had he called? What reputation was he weaving behind my back? I would soon find out. One night, I passed by Mia's bedroom and heard Derek's voice through the partially closed door. His tone was soft, too soft. The kind of voice you use right before delivering bad news. Mia, he said gently, your mom isn't herself lately. You've seen the way she's been acting. My heart stopped. Mia's voice came next, sharp and defensive. My mom doesn't drink. I didn't say she does, he said, pretending to be patient. But she's been different. She's tired because she works, Mia snapped. It's more than that. No, it's not, Mia insisted. You're lying. Her voice had weight. Steel. Fire. But he didn't back down. Mia, he whispered, I need you to understand something. Your mother is sick. And sometimes sick people make mistakes. But you mustn't blame her. I gripped the hallway wall. He wasn't just undermining me socially. He wasn't just planting rumors. He was trying to turn my own daughter against me. Slowly, subtly, carefully. Death by 1,000 insinuations. Mia, my sweet, smart, loyal girl, was pushing back with everything she had. But she was 14. A child. And he knew that. The worst part wasn't the lies he spread. The worst part was how convincing he was. Derek had always been charismatic. He was the kind of man people trusted instantly. A good job. A friendly smile. A steady voice. Never raised his tone. Never acted out. To the world he was the perfect husband. And to them I was the unsteady wife. People at church began giving me long, pitying looks. A friend from my book club messaged me asking if I wanted to talk. Parents at Mia's school stopped me with awkward concern. It felt like the entire town had slowly been turned against me. And I hadn't even realized it was happening. Meanwhile, Derek played the part of the supportive spouse. He would put his hand on my back in public. He would say, she's having a tough week, with a sympathetic sigh. He would shake his head sadly when I hesitated or forgot something. Every gesture carefully calculated. Every glance perfectly timed. By the time I noticed, it was already too late. The story he built had grown legs, wings, and a mouth of its own. I had become the alcoholic wife, the unstable spouse, the unreliable mother, without ever touching a drink. And Derek didn't stop. He continued whispering, suggesting, planting ideas like poisonous seeds. To neighbors, to my coworkers, to my own family. And that night, as I stood outside Mia's door, my heart pounding, I realized something chilling. Derek wasn't just damaging my reputation. He was building a case. A legal case. One he planned to use. But why? Why destroy his own wife's image? Why tear apart the family we built? Why go to such lengths? The question haunted me. But the answer wouldn't come until much later. And when it did, it would be darker, colder, and far more calculated than I ever imagined. Because destroying my reputation wasn't the end goal. It was only the foundation, the groundwork, the setup, for something he had been planning for a very long time. Up until that point, I kept telling myself the symptoms were stress, or insomnia, or maybe early menopause, or anything normal, anything that didn't involve my husband doing something unspeakable. Denial is a powerful thing. It keeps you sane in the moments you should be terrified. But denial can only survive until evidence forces its collapse. My collapse happened on a quiet Saturday morning. The sun wasn't even up. The house was still, cold, silent. I woke up feeling off. Not dizzy, not quite. Just wrong, like my body was operating a half-second behind my brain. My vision had a soft blur around the edges, like I was looking at the world through someone else's eyes. I swung my legs over the bed and sat there, breathing deeply, trying to clear the fog in my head. Maybe I'm coming down with something. Maybe I didn't sleep well. Maybe this is just stress again. I pushed myself up and walked toward the kitchen. The moment I opened the fridge, a wave of nausea hit me. Not normal nausea, violent nausea. Like the ground had shifted under my feet. I grabbed the counter to steady myself. My water bottle, the blue stainless steel one I used every morning, sat in its usual spot on the top shelf. I reached for it automatically. I unscrewed the cap, raised it to my lips, and took a sip. What happened next didn't feel real. A sharp burn slid across my tongue. The liquid scorched my throat. My stomach twisted violently. I gagged so hard I almost dropped the bottle. This wasn't water. This wasn't anything that should be in a water bottle. The taste was unmistakable. Vodka. Not a hint. Not a trace. A mouthful. My brain went white with shock. No. This can't be right. I filled this last night. I know I did. I remember doing it. So how? My hands trembled as I lifted the bottle to smell it. The scent hit me instantly. Strong. Harsh. Alcoholic. I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. I wasn't confused. I wasn't dehydrated. I wasn't sick. Something was being done to me. Something intentional. Something dangerous. I grabbed the bottle and stormed into the living room. "Derek!" I shouted. He came out of the hallway surprisingly fast, like he was waiting for something. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice steady. I held up the bottle. "Why is there vodka in this?" He blinked once. Slowly, almost with calculation. "What?" he said. "Don't play dumb. I tasted it. This isn't water." He crossed his arms over his chest and let out a long, exhausted sigh. "Amanda, maybe you put it there. I did not put vodka in my water bottle. You've been forgetful," he said softly. "You've been confused. These things happen when." "When what?" I snapped. He looked at me with pity. That fake pity he used whenever he wanted to paint me as unstable. When someone is drinking too much. My jaw dropped. "Derek, I haven't had a drink in months. You know that." He shook his head. "Amanda, alcoholics don't remember drinking." The world tilted. Something inside me cracked. I stared at him, searching his face for any sign of remorse, or fear, or even surprise. But he looked calm. Too calm. Not like someone who had been confronted with a shocking accusation. More like someone who had prepared for this moment. Who had rehearsed his reaction. who knew exactly what to say. A slow dread rolled through my stomach. "What are you trying to do?" I whispered. He raised an eyebrow. "I'm trying to help you." No. He wasn't. Every instinct in my body, the same instincts I had ignored for weeks, suddenly screamed at me. This was not normal. This was not accidental. This was not misunderstanding or miscommunication. This was malice. Cold, calculated malice. But I wasn't thinking clearly enough to grasp the full truth yet. I was still clinging to the idea that maybe, just maybe, this was some kind of giant, horrible mix-up. "It's vodka, Derek," I said quietly. "My doctor said I was dehydrated. This would explain that. This would explain everything." He shrugged. "You should stop drinking so much." He said it like a man commenting on the weather. Like he wasn't standing there watching his wife spiral into confusion and fear. Like he wasn't the cause. The room felt suddenly smaller, darker, claustrophobic. I backed away from him. "I'm not drinking," I whispered. "I'm not." He spoke slowly, patiently. "Amanda, I think you need help. And I'm willing to support you through this." That sentence broke something inside me. Not because of what he said, but because of how confidently he said it. Because he didn't flinch. He didn't smile nervously. He didn't defend himself. His eyes stayed cold, flat, emotionless. Like he was watching a plan unfold exactly as he intended. For the rest of the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply, profoundly wrong. I watched him. How he moved. How he talked. How he glanced at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Every gesture felt off. Too careful. Too controlled. I dumped the water bottle. Scrubbed it clean. Left it empty on the counter. But that night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him standing there, arms crossed, pretending to be worried while gaslighting me into insanity. Something was happening. Something big. Something planned. But I had no proof. Not yet. And that was the most dangerous part. Because Derek wasn't done. Not even close. He didn't want me confused. He wanted me disoriented. He didn't want me sick. He wanted me incapacitated. He didn't want people to believe he was helping. He wanted them to believe I was failing. And the vodka in the water bottle? That was just the beginning. The first big red flag. The first piece of undeniable evidence that something evil was happening inside my own home. But the truth, the full, horrifying truth, would only come to light because of someone who loved me more fiercely than I realized. Someone Derek underestimated. Someone watching him far more closely than I was watching myself. My daughter. My 14-year-old girl. The only reason I survived. "It's vodka, Derek," I said quietly. "My doctor said I was dehydrated. This would explain that. This would explain everything." He shrugged. "You should stop drinking so much." He said it like a man commenting on the weather. Like he wasn't standing there watching his wife spiral into confusion and fear. Like he wasn't the cause. The room felt suddenly smaller, darker, claustrophobic. I backed away from him. "I'm not drinking," I whispered. "I'm not." He spoke slowly, patiently. "Amanda, I think you need help. And I'm willing to support you through this." That sentence broke something inside me. Not because of what he said, but because of how confidently he said it. Because he didn't flinch. He didn't smile nervously. He didn't defend himself. His eyes stayed cold, flat, emotionless. Like he was watching a plan unfold exactly as he intended. For the rest of the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply, profoundly wrong. I watched him. How he moved. How he talked. How he glanced at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Every gesture felt off. Too careful. Too controlled. I dumped the water bottle. Scrubbed it clean. Left it empty on the counter. But that night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him standing there, arms crossed, pretending to be worried while gaslighting me into insanity. Something was happening. Something big. Something planned. But I had no proof. Not yet. And that was the most dangerous part. Because Derek wasn't done. Not even close. He didn't want me confused. He wanted me disoriented. He didn't want me sick. He wanted me incapacitated. He didn't want people to believe he was helping. He wanted them to believe I was failing. And the vodka in the water bottle? That was just the beginning. The first big red flag. The first piece of undeniable evidence that something evil was happening inside my own home. If I lied now, I would be doing exactly what he wanted. So I told her the truth. At least part of it. I think someone put vodka in my water. Her eyes widened. Dad? She asked immediately. I froze. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want her to believe it. The word dad shouldn't sit beside a question like that. But Mia wasn't guessing. She was connecting dots I hadn't let myself see. He keeps saying you're drinking, she whispered. But you don't. I know you don't. My throat tightened. Mia. She held up her hand. No. Listen to me, Mom. He's been weird. For months. The way he talks to people. The way he talks about you. My chest ached. It's like he's trying to convince everyone you're broken. Broken. That word hit harder than any other. Because that's exactly how I'd been feeling. Not sick. Not alcoholic. Broken. And Derek was the one holding the hammer. I pulled Mia into a hug, burying my face in her hair. I don't know what's going on, I whispered. But I'm scared. She pulled back and looked at me with a determination far too strong for a 14-year-old. Then I'm going to help you figure it out. Mia. No. You always protect me. It's my turn. And then she said something I will never forget. I believe you, Mom. For words that glued my fractured reality back together. That night I barely slept. But Mia didn't sleep either. While I lay awake in fear, she lay awake in calculation. She wasn't just worried. She was planning. I found out the next morning. Click. That tiny sound woke me up at 6 a.m. I walked out into the hallway and found Mia kneeling at the front door, adjusting our Ring camera. What are you doing? I asked. She didn't even flinch. We're going to find out what he's doing, she said simply. Mia, you can't. Yes, she interrupted. I can. And I already did. She angled the camera so it had a perfect view through the doorway, straight into the kitchen, right toward the fridge, right toward the counter. Right toward the place Derek walked every morning before work. I opened my mouth to protest, but then I closed it again. Because deep down, in the place fear had taken root, I needed the truth too. Mia, I whispered. This could be dangerous. She shrugged. Not as dangerous as what he's doing to you. She finished adjusting the angle and stood up. The camera light blinked twice. Recording. She turned to me. We'll watch the footage together. But we didn't get answers the first day. Or the second. Or the third. Derek didn't go near my water bottle those mornings. It was almost like he sensed something was off. Like he was waiting. Watching. Calculating. But Mia didn't give up. Every day after school, she came into my room and handed me the iPad with the Ring app open. And every day the footage showed Derek walking into the kitchen, making coffee, checking his phone, grabbing his keys. Nothing suspicious. Nothing abnormal. Just waiting. Until one morning. 1 week after the vodka incident. It was Sunday. I heard Mia gasp from the living room. MOM. My blood ran cold. I ran out of the bedroom so fast I nearly slipped. She was standing in front of the TV where the Ring footage was playing. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the remote. The footage was clear. Crystal clear. 5:42 a.m. The kitchen lights clicked on. Derek walked in wearing the same gray hoodie he wore almost every morning. He opened the fridge. He took out my blue water bottle. He unscrewed the cap. Then he reached behind the cereal boxes and pulled out a half-empty bottle of vodka. The same brand we'd used for a New Year's party months ago. He poured it in. Not a splash. Not a drip. A long deliberate pour. Then he shook the bottle lightly like he'd done it before. He put everything back exactly where he found it. Then he walked out. Calm, casual, humming. I covered my mouth. Mia grabbed my arm. Her voice cracked. Mom. He's been doing it every morning. Every morning. My knees almost buckled. My own husband was poisoning me. Slowly, intentionally, methodically. I felt sick. Not from the vodka, but from the truth. The horrifying, unforgivable truth. Derek wasn't trying to accuse me of being an alcoholic. He was trying to create one. No, he was trying to destroy me, piece by piece, until everyone believed his story, until I was too disoriented to fight, until I became the person he told the world I was. Tears blurred my vision. Mia looked at me with fierce, trembling anger. I told you I'd figure it out, she whispered. And I did. I grabbed her and hugged her so tightly she squeaked. If not for her, if not for this one smart, brave, determined child, I might never have known. I might have kept drinking the poison he fed me. I might have fallen again. Harder. Down the stairs. Into the car. Into something accidental. I might have died. All while the world thought. The alcoholic wife finally drank herself into disaster. But Mia stopped it. Mia saw what I couldn't. Mia caught my monster. My husband. And the moment I saw that footage, everything changed. Because fear was no longer the driving force. Now there was proof. Clear. Undeniable. Shocking. And with proof came power. What we did with that power became the next chapter of our lives. And the beginning of Derek's downfall. If the vodka in my water bottle was the moment I suspected something was wrong, the Ring camera footage was the moment I knew I wasn't crazy. The moment the truth ripped through the lies Derek had wrapped around me like chains. The moment everything clicked into place. Every symptom, every accusation, every strange look from neighbors, every whisper of she's not herself lately. It all made sense. Because it was engineered. By the man sleeping next to me. The morning Mia found the footage, the house was quiet. It was that early morning quiet where the light hasn't reached the windows yet. Where the world feels soft and fragile. I heard her scream my name, and every part of me went cold. MOM. I sprinted into the living room and found her standing in front of the TV. Her hands were trembling. Her eyes were wide and filled with something between fear and fury. The Ring footage was paused on the screen. Derek holding my water bottle. Derek holding a bottle of vodka behind the cereal boxes. Derek unscrewing the lid. I felt my breath leave my lungs in one painful exhale. Play it, I whispered. She hit play. And I watched. I watched the man I had promised my life to pour alcohol, slowly, methodically, into the bottle I drank from every single morning. I watched him shake it casually like he'd done it 100 times. I watched him place it back with precision. I watched him walk away. No guilt. No hesitation. No remorse. Just ease. Like poisoning his wife was as normal as making coffee. When the footage ended, Mia looked at me with tears running silently down her cheeks. He's been doing it every day, she whispered. I checked the whole week. I covered my mouth. My vision blurred. I sank onto the couch as my legs gave out beneath me. Every moment of confusion crashed into me at once. The fog. The headaches. The shaking hands. The accidental fall down the stairs. The nausea. The days I couldn't remember clearly. He hadn't been guessing when he accused me. He hadn't been worried. He hadn't been mistaken. He had been building a narrative. Brick by brick. Morning by morning. Sip by sip. He wanted people to see me stumble. He wanted people to hear me slur. He wanted people to notice my shaking hands. He wanted people to whisper. He was creating the image of an alcoholic. Because he needed proof. Because he wanted a story he could point to. Because he was planning something far darker. I replayed the footage 3 times. And each time the horror hit harder. The way he hid the vodka behind the cereal boxes. Not the liquor cabinet. Not a drawer. Not a shelf. He chose a place I would never look. Because he knew my habits. He knew my routine. He knew me. More than that, he knew how to weaponize my habits against me. He wasn't doing this out of anger. This wasn't impulsive. This was premeditated. Careful. Strategic. Cruel. Mia sat beside me, clutching my arm like she was anchoring me to reality. Mom, she whispered. We have to get out. And she was right. But the danger wasn't just physical. It wasn't just the poisoning. It was psychological. Derek was manipulating everyone around us, convincing them I was spiraling. And worse, he was trying to make me believe it too. That's what gaslighting does. It crawls under your skin until you don't trust your own reflection. But the footage changed everything. The fog lifted. The confusion sharpened into anger. Real righteous anger. Not the kind that makes you yell. The kind that makes you survive. Mia pulled up more clips. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Every morning. 5:40 a.m. 5:41. 5:42. He walked into that kitchen like a man following a schedule. He checked the hallway, making sure I was still asleep. He'd open the fridge. He'd take my water bottle. And he'd poison me. Over and over. Mia's voice trembled. He was trying to hurt you, Mom. Or make you look like you were hurting yourself. That sentence sliced through me. Because she was right. But it wasn't just that. I realized something chilling. He was escalating. The headaches had gotten worse. The dizziness more intense. The falls more frequent. If Mia hadn't caught this, if I had kept drinking that water, if I had kept trusting him, what would have happened next? Another fall? A car crash? A tragic accident? And Derek, the grieving husband, shaking his head and saying, she drank too much. I tried to help her. A scenario the world would have believed. Because he worked hard to make sure they would. The perfect setup. The perfect alibi. The perfect crime. Except for one thing. He underestimated his daughter. He underestimated the fire inside her. He underestimated the fact that Mia wasn't just watching. She was documenting. And that changed everything. When the shock finally settled, I grabbed her shoulders gently. Mia, thank you. You saved me. She shook her head fiercely. No. I just showed you what he was doing. Now you have to save us. Her words hit me hard. Because she wasn't wrong. The footage was evidence. Undeniable, incriminating, damning evidence. But exposing a man like Derek wasn't simple. Derek with his charming smile. Derek with his perfect reputation. Derek who volunteered at school events. Derek who mowed neighbors' lawns. Derek who had convinced half the neighborhood I was an alcoholic. He had been planting seeds for months, maybe years, and I had watered them without realizing it. With every confused stumble, every lost memory, every symptom he had caused. But now we had the truth. And truth is powerful. Truth is dangerous. Truth is something that men like Derek can't control. I looked down at Mia's trembling hands. No more, I whispered. We're done. She nodded. We need to leave. We will, I said. But not yet. Why? She whispered fearfully. Because we need more than footage, I said. We need protection. We need a plan. And we need to make sure he can never deny this. Ever. Mia swallowed hard. What if he finds out we know? A chill ran through me. Then, I said, we don't go back inside this house. Ever. Because I knew one thing with absolute certainty. If Derek realized we knew the truth, if he realized we had evidence, if he realized we were planning to leave, he wouldn't let us walk out. He was too invested, too calm, too comfortable with what he was doing. Men like him don't panic. They escalate. And I wasn't going to give him the chance. Not anymore. We started documenting everything. Screenshots, dates, times, videos. Mia created backups on her school laptop. I created backups on my cloud drive. A friend created backups on a private server. We treated it like a crime scene. Because that's exactly what it was. A crime unfolding in real time. A crime that, if not for one brave teenage girl and a $99 camera, would have succeeded. That night, as I watched Derek nibble dinner like nothing was wrong, smiling at me across the table, I felt nothing. Not fear. Not love. Not confusion. Just clarity. The man sitting across from me wasn't my husband. He wasn't a partner. He wasn't a father. He wasn't even a human being in that moment. He was a predator wearing a wedding ring. And thanks to Mia, I finally saw him clearly. Tomorrow the escape would begin. Tomorrow the plan would set in motion. Tomorrow the man who was trying to destroy my life would take his first step toward losing his own. And he would never see it coming. There are moments in life when reality doesn't break all at once. It cracks slowly, quietly, silently, until suddenly the whole truth shatters everything you thought was solid. This chapter, this confrontation, was that shattering moment. Because what Derek confessed to me wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just manipulation. It wasn't even just attempted poisoning. It was something darker, colder, rotten at the core. It was intent. 3 days passed after Mia and I discovered the footage. 3 long, excruciating days where we played the roles he expected from us. The dutiful wife. The obedient daughter. The family he believed he had complete control over. We laughed at his jokes. We ate at his dinner table. We acted like we were exhausted, confused, foggy. Like we were still under his spell. Because until we had a plan, until our evidence was duplicated, protected, and secured, we couldn't risk tipping him off. But on the 4th day I couldn't fake it anymore. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the way he kissed the top of my head that morning. Maybe it was the way he said, "Don't forget your water, honey," with that gentle smile. The same smile he wore while poisoning me. Or maybe it was simply that for the first time I saw him clearly. Not as my husband. Not as Mia's father. Not as the man I once loved. But as a threat. A threat standing in my kitchen. A threat holding my water bottle. A threat wearing my last name. So I confronted him. He walked into the living room around 8 p.m., sipping a beer, humming softly like he didn't have a care in the world. I was standing by the kitchen island, the ring footage pulled up on my tablet. Still paused on that frame. The frame where he was emptying vodka into my bottle. He froze when he saw it. Just for a moment. A single second. A blink. But I saw it. That flicker of recognition. That flicker of fear. The first crack in his mask. Then, just as quickly, his expression smoothed out. Calm. Controlled. Cold. "Where did you get that?" he asked. His voice was steady but too steady. A rehearsed steadiness. "I think you know," I said. He stepped forward slowly. "Turn it off." "No." "Then explain what you think you're seeing." My heart thundered in my chest but my voice stayed firm. "I'm seeing you poison me, Derek." Silence. Total silence. No excuses. No denial. No yelling. Nothing. He watched me the way a hunter watches a trapped animal. No rush, no panic, just calculation. Then he exhaled a small, almost bored breath. "Okay," he said. "So you know." Just like that. 3 words that felt like knives. Not fear. Not apology. Not remorse. Acceptance. And that scared me more than anything. "Why?" I whispered. He tilted his head, eyes drifting across the kitchen like he was bored of the conversation already. "Why?" he repeated, as if it were a stupid question. "Yes," I said. "Why were you trying to make me look like an alcoholic?" A slow smirk curled at the corner of his mouth. "Because you weren't supposed to get better." A chill crawled down my arms. "What does that mean?" He took another step, leaned casually against the counter, and spoke like he was explaining a business plan. "I've been planning to leave you for years, Amanda. Years. But I wasn't about to let you take half of everything I built." I stared at him, stunned. "You could have divorced me." He laughed. A short, cold laugh. "And give you half my assets? Half my business?" "No. I needed leverage." My stomach nodded. He continued. "If I could prove you were unstable. If I could prove you drank too much. If I could prove you were an unfit mother. You'd get custody," I whispered. "And the house," he added. "And the business. And the insurance." Insurance. The word echoed. What insurance? He raised an eyebrow, amused. You really don't check the mail, do you? And that's when the realization struck me like a punch. He wasn't just trying to ruin my reputation. He wasn't just trying to take Mia. He wasn't just trying to divorce me on his terms. There was a life insurance policy, a significant one, a new one, in my name, with him as the beneficiary. My heart hammered. My breath caught. Everything inside me twisted. You were poisoning me, I whispered. Not to frame me, not just to take Mia. You were trying to make me sick. His eyes flicked up, and the smirk disappeared. He straightened, and for the first time since I had met him, he didn't hide. No charm, no excuses, no mask, just the truth. Cold, raw, unfiltered. I needed options, he said. If the divorce didn't work out, if custody didn't go my way, well, accidents happen. My throat closed. Accidents. Like a fall down the stairs. Like the fall I already had. Like the dizzy spells. Like the confusion. Like the way he insisted I drive even when I felt sick. Accidents that would make sense to everyone. Accidents that matched the profile of a struggling alcoholic. He had built the perfect setup. The perfect cover story. The perfect motive. The perfect crime. And I was the only one who didn't know. You were going to kill me, I said. He shrugged. That's dramatic. No, I whispered, shaking. That's the truth. He stepped closer. Too close. Close enough I could smell the beer on his breath. You don't understand what you're accusing me of, he said quietly. I understand exactly what you're doing, I replied. His voice hardened. You think anyone is going to believe your version of events? I almost broke. Almost. But then I remembered Mia. I remembered her hands trembling as she showed me the footage. I remembered her whisper, "You have to save us." And something inside me ignited. Strength I didn't know I had. Yes, I said. They will believe me. He laughed again. And why is that? I lifted the tablet and hit play. The footage filled the room. Derek's face changed instantly. Not fear, but anger. Anger that I had evidence. Anger that I had been one step ahead. Anger that his perfect plan got ruined. He stepped toward me, and for the first time in my life, I thought he might actually hurt me physically. But I didn't back up. Not 1 inch. I'm done playing your game, I said. I'm done being your story. I'm done letting you rewrite my reality. His jaw clenched. You don't know what you're doing, he said. I know exactly what I'm doing, I answered. And for a moment, just a brief, terrifying moment, we stood in silence, two people who used to be a family now staring at each other like enemies. Because that's what we were. Enemies. Then he whispered, "You ruin everything." Not "I'm sorry." Not "I didn't mean it." Not "let's talk." You ruin everything. And those were the last words he spoke to me as a free man. Because at that moment, with his confession, with the footage, with the insurance policy, with the pattern of poisoning, I knew the truth. Derek didn't just want a divorce. He wanted a future without me. A future where he kept the house, kept the money, kept Mia, kept everything. He just needed me gone. But Mia and a Ring camera had stopped him. And now, it was time to destroy his plan piece by piece. It was time to escape. It was time to fight back. The night after Derek's confession, Mia and I sat in the living room, the house silent except for the faint hum of the fridge. My hand shook, gripping the tablet, still replaying the footage. Every frame a reminder of the danger we were in. Mia's eyes, wide and determined, met mine. "We need a plan," she said quietly. Not a question. Not a suggestion. A command. I nodded. Yes, a plan. We couldn't just run. That would be reckless. He was too smart, too controlling, too dangerous. We needed precision, timing, evidence, and safety. Mia had already duplicated the Ring footage onto a hard drive hidden in her backpack. "Mom," she whispered. "If anything happens, this proves everything." I nodded, my throat tight. I knew she was right. The footage was our lifeline, the key to stopping him legally and protecting ourselves. We also went through the house quietly, making sure no other cameras or recording devices were watching us. Derek had been careful before, but his arrogance was also his weakness. He never expected Mia to fight back. For the next 2 days we acted like nothing had happened. We ate dinner together. We laughed at his jokes even when they made me cringe. I smiled, careful to mask my fear. Mia whispered updates. Every time Derek poured water into my bottle, she recorded it on her hidden phone. Every single morning. He didn't suspect. Not even for a second. This facade was exhausting. But it was necessary. Because the moment we made our move, we had to vanish. And he couldn't suspect a thing. On the 3rd morning, when Derek left for work, we moved quickly. We packed only the essentials. Important documents, birth certificates, passports, financial records, the backup hard drive with the ring footage, clothes and toiletries, Mia's school essentials, my laptop, or a small emergency bag with cash, medications, and chargers. Every second was calculated. Every item considered for survival, not comfort. Mia carried the hard drive in her backpack, close to her chest like a shield. We didn't look back as we left the house. The front door clicked shut behind us, a sound that felt like both liberation and heartbreak. We drove to my sister's house 2 hours away. My sister had no idea what had been happening at my home, but she had always been my safety net. When we arrived, I felt the first wave of relief wash over me. Mia ran inside, leaving me standing in the driveway taking a deep, shaky breath. We were safe for now. But the danger wasn't over. Derek had resources. He had cunning. He would come looking. And if he found us, he wouldn't hesitate. Within 24 hours, we contacted a lawyer. The call was brief but urgent. I explained everything. The poisoning, the fall, the dizzy spells, the manipulated narrative, the insurance policy, the ring footage. The lawyer didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned in. "This is serious," he said. "You've got a strong case for attempted poisoning, child endangerment, and attempted fraud. And that footage, that's a slam dunk." I exhaled, relief mixed with fear. Because legal battles are one thing. Facing the man who tried to kill you and manipulate your daughter? That's another. We changed our phone numbers. We blocked Derek on social media. We made sure the lawyer knew of any attempt he might make to contact us. We installed security cameras at my sister's house. Mia, who had been terrified for so long, suddenly became vigilant, almost military in her approach. Every morning she checked the doors. Every night she made sure the windows were locked. She even created a silent alarm system with her phone. Notifications would alert her if someone approached the house. I realized then that she wasn't just my daughter anymore. She was my protector, my ally, my reason to fight. The hardest part wasn't leaving the house. It wasn't the fear of Derek coming after us. It was the realization that nothing would ever be the same. I couldn't trust easily anymore. I couldn't take anything at face value. I couldn't ignore the subtle ways people manipulate others. But the hardest part was seeing Mia's eyes. The way she had aged overnight, carrying the weight of being both a child and a guardian. We spent hours talking that first night at my sister's house. We cried. We screamed. We held each other tight. And slowly we began to plan. We wouldn't just survive. We would fight. Because Derek had underestimated us. He didn't account for a daughter who wouldn't let her mother be destroyed. He didn't account for a mother who refused to die quietly. We were ready. We knew the next step was confronting the law. Every day, we prepared for the eventuality of Derek finding us. Every night, we rehearsed our story in our heads, ensuring nothing could be twisted or misrepresented. Mia's bravery kept me grounded. And when the day came that the police would finally step in, we would be ready. Because for 2 long years, Derek had been planning my downfall. But in less than a week, the tables would turn. The predator would be caught. The plan would fail. And justice, long overdue, would arrive. The next morning, long before the sun rose, my phone buzzed. It was my lawyer. "Amanda," he said, voice firm. "Today is the day." The detectives reviewed the footage. They're issuing the warrant. My heart pounded. It was finally happening. But the reality of it hit harder than I expected. This wasn't just a man being arrested. This was the father of my child. The man I once trusted with my life. The man who stood beside me at my wedding, promising to love me in sickness and in health. The man who had tucked Mia into bed, kissed her forehead while trying to slowly kill her mother. Derek. My husband. And today he was going to jail. The detectives had taken this case seriously from the start. Once they saw the ring footage, their questions became sharp, direct, relentless. How long have you been having these symptoms? When did the dizziness start? How many times have you fallen? Have you been hospitalized? Has he made comments implying you're unstable? Has he ever mentioned life insurance to you? For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something shift. People believed me. Not because I said it, but because my daughter had captured the truth with a little blinking camera. Detectives asked for Mia's statements too. She sat upright, voice steady, every sentence stronger than the last. She described how Derek treated me, how he whispered lies into her ear, how he poured vodka into my water bottle at 5:42 a.m., like it was part of his morning routine, how he told her I was sick and that I needed help. Detective Morales, a woman in her 50s with the patience of a saint and the eyes of a hawk, leaned forward and said softly, "Mia, you saved your mother's life." I watched something change in my daughter's face when she heard that. For months she had been scared. Now she was proud. Now she was powerful. Now she was the reason justice was coming. By noon the police had all they needed. "Amanda," the detective said, "we're moving forward with the arrest today. He won't see it coming." I felt relief and terror, because a cornered man is a dangerous one. Police decided to arrest Derek at work. A controlled environment, public enough to keep him from losing control, private enough to avoid chaos. They told me not to contact him, not to warn him, not even to check social media. "Let us handle this," Detective Morales said. "You and Mia stay indoors. Do not go anywhere alone. Not today." My sister hovered nearby, fear etched deep into her expression. I wanted to pace. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run down the street until the energy burned out of my bones. But I couldn't. I had to wait. Waiting, I learned, is its own kind of torture. At 2:17 p.m. my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. A police line. I answered with shaking hands. "Amanda? This is Detective Morales." My heart stopped. "It's done," she said. "We have him." For a moment I couldn't speak. Then my knees gave out. I slid to the floor, tears spilling down my face, Mia rushing to my side. "He's arrested," I whispered. "He can't hurt us anymore." But the detective kept talking. "Amanda, there's more." Derek hadn't gone quietly. When officers approached him at work, he laughed at first. Actually laughed. Like they were joking. Like this was some misunderstanding. But then they showed him the warrant. His face drained of color. Then he got angry. Very angry. He started yelling that it was all a lie. He blamed me. He blamed Mia. He said I had brainwashed her. He said Mia hated him for enforcing rules. He said the footage was edited. He said the detectives were being manipulated by a crazy woman. He said anything he could think of. Desperation dripping from every word. When officers cuffed him, coworkers stared. Some confused. Some horrified. Some whispering. That evening, Detective Morales called again. "Amanda, you need to hear what he said when we questioned him." I braced myself. Derek sat in the interrogation room, hands cuffed, eyes cold. At first he claimed everything was a prank, a joke, a misunderstanding. But when detectives presented the footage, the HD time-stamped undeniable evidence, his story changed. He snapped. "I did it because I had TO," he shouted. "She was going to ruin everything." His voice rose, filled with venom. "She wasn't supposed to get better. She was supposed to be dependent on me. She was supposed to be too weak to fight back. Then his voice dropped to a chilling calm. I was fixing the problem. The detective paused on the phone. Amanda, he called you a problem. I felt sick. I felt cold. I felt the weight of months of manipulation crash down on me. To him, I was an obstacle. Not a partner. Not a mother. Not a human being. Just something in the way. Detective Morales continued. And there's something else. Something important. My stomach clenched. We found evidence of the life insurance policy. The one he took out in your name. I swallowed hard. How much? I whispered. A little over $500,000. $500,000. $500,000 attached to my death. I felt my pulse in my ears. Mia went pale. He planned this for over a year, the detective said. We believe he was escalating slowly. Small amounts of vodka at first. Increasing over time. Enough to impair you, but not enough to kill you immediately. My breath caught. So what was he planning? The detective didn't soften the truth. He was waiting for the right moment. A fall. A car accident. A bathtub slip. Anything that looked unintentional. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. He wanted you gone, Amanda. A shiver ran through me. He wanted the money. And he wanted custody of Mia. Because she was perfect. Smart. Kind. Obedient. Everything he could mold. Everything he could control. Derek wasn't charged with one crime. He was charged with many. Administering a toxic substance. Domestic assault. Child endangerment. Insurance fraud. A coercive control. Attempted poisoning. But the biggest charge? Attempted homicide. Not rumored. Not suspected. Confirmed by investigators. Amanda, Detective Morales said, if Mia hadn't set up that camera, you wouldn't be alive today. I closed my eyes, breathed in, breathed out, and let that truth settle in my bones. When I hung up the phone, Mia was watching me carefully. Mom, she whispered. What did they say? I pulled her into my arms, holding her so tightly I could feel her heartbeat. You saved me, I said, voice cracking. You saved us both. Her body trembled. She cried into my shoulder. We cried together. For the danger. For the betrayal. For the relief. For the future that suddenly felt possible again. That night she slept curled beside me. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. We had survived. I woke up the next morning with a strange sensation. Safety. Real safety. It was the first peaceful sleep I'd had in months. The fear was still there. The trauma still deep. But Derek was no longer free. No longer watching my movements. No longer poisoning my water. No longer whispering lies into Mia's ear. No longer plotting to erase me. He was behind bars. And for the first time we could breathe. But even as relief washed over me, I knew. This wasn't the end. There would be a trial. A courtroom. A confrontation. And Derek wouldn't go quietly. People like him don't accept defeat. They blame. They manipulate. They twist. They attack. And I knew deep down that the hardest part was still coming. The courtroom would be a battlefield. And Mia and I would have to walk into it together. But now? We weren't alone. We had evidence. We had witnesses. We had the law on our side. And most importantly, we had each other. The courthouse loomed over us like a gray fortress. Its cold stone walls, its echoing halls, the sharp smell of disinfectant and polished wood. It all reminded me that we were stepping into a battlefield. But this battlefield wasn't just about law. It was about survival, about reclaiming my life and protecting Mia. I clutched her hand tightly as we entered, feeling the weight of every accusation Derek had ever hurled at me. The whispers of neighbors, the lies he told her, the endless mornings of poison in my water. It all led to this. Derek arrived in handcuffs, flanked by 2 bailiffs. His face was unreadable. Cold. Controlled. No hint of shame, no flicker of regret. Just the same icy calm I had seen when he first admitted to poisoning me. His attorney followed, carrying a briefcase that smelled faintly of leather and arrogance. He glanced at us with thinly veiled judgment, like Mia and I were some inconvenient interruption in his carefully scripted life. The judge entered. Her presence was commanding, serene, the kind that demands attention without raising her voice. She reviewed the case documents briefly before looking directly at Derek. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "you are charged with multiple felonies, including administering a harmful substance, child endangerment, and attempted homicide. How do you plead?" Derek's lips curled into a thin smile. "Not guilty, Your Honor," he said, voice smooth, rehearsed. "I am innocent of all charges." I felt my stomach tighten. This man who had tried to destroy my life now stood before the court pretending to be a victim, an innocent husband, a wronged father. It was infuriating, but I had to stay calm. The prosecutor, a sharp, determined woman named Rachel, called her first witness, Mia. My daughter stood, poised despite her 14 years, and recounted everything she had seen. Her voice never wavered. Every detail, the whispering, the lies, the poisoning, every day recorded on the Ring camera, every step of Derek's calculated plan. Then came the evidence. The HD Ring footage. Time-stamped, irrefutable, terrifying in its clarity. The camera didn't lie. Derek opened the fridge, took my water bottle, poured vodka in with deliberate precision, shook it and walked away like it was nothing. The prosecutor paused the footage at every significant moment, letting the jury see the cold intent in his eyes. I sat frozen, my heart hammering. I had lived through this nightmare, but seeing it on screen, knowing that everyone else could see the truth too, it was both horrifying and vindicating. Mia leaned into me, her small hand clutching mine, and I felt a surge of pride and relief. She had done this. She had saved us. Of course, Derek's attorney tried to dismantle everything. Edited footage, he claimed. A manipulated narrative. Honor. There is no proof beyond doubt that Mr. Thompson intended harm. This is circumstantial evidence at best. Rachel countered methodically. She presented timestamps, corroborating statements from doctors, neighbors, and even a toxicology report showing elevated blood alcohol levels inconsistent with my actual consumption. Step by step, the defense was dismantled. Derek himself tried to speak during cross-examination. He was calm at first, but the pressure of the evidence began to crack his mask. He denied everything, blamed me, blamed Mia, and tried to twist the story into one where I was unstable and jealous, fabricating a tale of victimhood that made my blood boil. But each lie unraveled. Every claim he made was countered with evidence, with witnesses, with the silent truth of a camera that had captured his malevolent routine in excruciating clarity. The most harrowing moment came when the judge asked me to testify. My hand shook as I stepped up to the stand. My voice quivered, but I forced it steady. "I loved him," I said softly. "I trusted him. And every morning he tried to kill me. He tried to destroy our family for money, for control. And he almost succeeded." Mia sat beside me, eyes wide, silent but supportive. When I looked at her, I realized something incredible. She wasn't afraid anymore. She wasn't a victim. She was my ally, my protector, my brave little warrior who had refused to let her mother be destroyed. The judge nodded, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had spoken the truth. The jury had seen the footage. They knew what had happened. And now it was time for justice. After days of testimony, after each piece of evidence laid bare, Derek finally had his chance to speak. The courtroom was silent as he looked at the jury, at me, at Mia. "You ruined everything," he said quietly, almost too soft to hear. But everyone did. It was like a chilling whisper that filled the room. A final admission of the darkness that had lived within him. No remorse. No apology. Just accusation. I held my head high. The power was no longer his. The fear was no longer mine. We were no longer his victims. The jury deliberated for what felt like an eternity. Hours dragged into a day. My nerves frayed. Mia held my hand, squeezing it with the steady strength that had carried us through this nightmare. Finally, the bailiff returned. "Will the defendant please rise?" he said. "Have you reached a verdict?" "Yes, we have," the foreperson said. Derek's face was unreadable. He tried to hide it. But I saw it, the slightest twitch of panic. We find the defendant guilty on all charges. The words hit me like a wave. I blinked trying to process it. Guilt. Relief. Triumph. It was overwhelming. Derek was finally accountable. The man who had tried to poison me, destroy our family, and manipulate our daughter would never hurt us again. As Derek was led away in handcuffs, Mia whispered in my ear, "We did it, Mom. We're safe." And in that moment I knew she was right. We were safe. The nightmare had ended. The nightmare that had begun with quiet manipulations, poisoned water bottles, and whispered lies was finally over. But healing would take time. Trauma does not vanish with a verdict. It lingers. It haunts. And yet we had survived. We had faced the darkness together, and we had won. The courtroom doors closed behind Derek, and the weight of silence settled over us like a dense fog. Outside, the world carried on, cars honking, people rushing, but inside, time slowed. Every breath I took was deliberate, measured. Mia clung to my hand, her small fingers trembling yet steady, a stark contrast to the turmoil in my chest. We stepped out into the crisp Colorado air, sunlight filtering through the trees, casting long shadows on the pavement. It was a beautiful morning, but I couldn't immediately see it. My mind replayed every poisoned sip, every whispered lie, every moment I had doubted my own sanity. The hardest part wasn't Derek's arrest. It wasn't even the court proceedings. The hardest part was rebuilding the life he had tried to erase, and reclaiming the trust that had been shattered. Neighbors who had believed his manipulations came forward, apologies spilling from their lips, hands trembling, eyes wide with guilt. "We didn't know," one woman said, pressing a casserole into my arms. "We never suspected." Co-workers sent flowers, cards, notes of encouragement. My mother cried, and I held her as if the tears could somehow wash away the months of fear and betrayal. And while their support was heartwarming, it could never undo the psychological scars left behind. Mia started therapy. At first, she was reluctant. She wasn't a child who cried often, and the thought of talking about Derek's manipulation made her stiffen, her jaw tight with anger. But slowly, through the safe walls of a counselor's office, she began to unpack the fear and confusion she had carried. I started therapy too. Sessions were long, exhausting. Sometimes I left shaking, sometimes sobbing. But each session was a step toward reclaiming my identity. I was not an alcoholic. I was not fragile. I was Amanda, the woman Derek had tried to destroy, and I was still standing. The first few months were the hardest. Every unscrewed bottle, every kitchen cabinet I opened, every smell of alcohol brought back a flash of fear. My hands shook involuntarily, my stomach twisted. Mia would sometimes squeeze my shoulder and whisper, "It's okay, Mom. It's behind us now." Even now, months later, I flinch when I see vodka. But I remind myself that my fear is no longer control. It's a memory, a reminder of how close I came to losing everything. And that memory fuels my vigilance, my drive, my resilience. Through all of this, one lesson became crystal clear. Evil doesn't always come from strangers. It doesn't always arrive in the night with a mask or a weapon. Sometimes it grows in the most ordinary places, behind a smile, next to you in bed, in the voice that whispers that you're crazy when you know you're not. And sometimes the only thing that saves you isn't luck. It's courage. Mia had courage. A 14-year-old girl who saw through lies, who noticed patterns, who refused to let her mother be destroyed. She became my protector, my reminder, my anchor. Without her, the story might have been very different. Life slowly returned to a new kind of normal. We moved into a smaller house, but it was ours. Every corner, every wall, every light switch was a reminder that we were safe. The Ring camera, once a tool for uncovering deception, now sat quietly, a symbol of vigilance and survival. School routines resumed. Mia flourished, her confidence slowly returning as she realized that the world could be safe again. And I found solace in writing, in sharing our story, in raising awareness. Our nightmare became a mission. To remind others that manipulation can be subtle, that danger can hide behind familiarity, and that vigilance can save lives. Looking back, I marvel at the layers of deception Derek built. The gaslighting, the calculated poisoning, the lies to friends, family, and even our own daughter. It was methodical, terrifying. But it was also flawed. Because he underestimated the bond between mother and child, underestimated the instinct to fight back, underestimated the power of evidence. The Ring camera, that small blinking piece of technology, became a silent hero in our story. But more than that, it was Mia's intuition, her refusal to be silenced, that truly saved us. She reminded me that bravery isn't about size or age. It's about refusing to be complicit in your own destruction. Now I live cautiously but freely. I am vigilant but unbroken. I have learned to recognize red flags, to trust my instincts, and to document every irregularity, no matter how small. I have learned that survival requires both awareness and courage. Mia and I are stronger for it. We talk openly about the past, but we refuse to be prisoners of it. And every morning when I refill my water bottle, I smile, because I am no longer a victim. I am a survivor. And so is she. If you take anything from our story, let it be this. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Never ignore the quiet ways someone tries to rewrite your reality. Stay vigilant. Stay safe. And never underestimate the courage of a child who refuses to let her mother be destroyed. Because sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones you least expect. Don't forget to subscribe my channel for more real life stories like this.